Hello everybody, you're listening to The Art Show on 106.6 FM Wickham Sound. I'm your host Dane Cobain. This is the weekly radio show where we chat about the local arts news. We head over to the Ride Zone for a short story and or some poetry. We catch up with Twangling Jack Ford over in the Oak Shed for a weekly album review, and we play local, unsigned and or independent music. As always, you can find us on Facebook. If you search for The Art Show on Wickham Sound, you should be able to find us. And we are repeat on Wickham Sound on Monday nights. We're on the Wickham Sound Listen Again, iTunes, Spotify and wherever else you get your podcasts. Please do leave us a short review on your podcast platform of choice. If you want to get in touch with me, you can do so on dane.cobain@wickhamsound.org.uk. That's dane.cobain@wickhamsound.org.uk. So this week we are having a Twangling Jack Ford album review special, but before we do that we are going to head over to the Ride Zone for the latest instalment of The Possession of Daphne Degamersi by myself, Dane Cobain. Muji was so freaked out that she stopped hanging out with us. I still spent time with Daphne, but only at school. I kept myself to myself during the summer, and on the rare occasions where she asked me to go out or to stay over at her house, I came up with an excuse. I'd been disturbed by the Ouija session, but Muji had seen it as an affront to Allah. I've never been particularly religious, although I consider myself a believer, but to me it was just an affront to common sense. Years passed, and after we graduated high school, Daphne and I lost touch. I moved to England to study for my degree, but I went back to stay with my parents during the summer. I met Erdem when I was back home at the end of my second year. We started dating, and we've been together ever since. On January, I was back in Istanbul for my birthday and Eid when I ran into Muji at the hairdresser's. I hadn't seen her since our teenage years, and so we had plenty of gossip to catch up on. There was an elephant in the room that we did our best to skirt around, but it was such a big elephant that we had to address it eventually. It was Muji who broke the silence. "Do you remember Daphne?" she asked. "How could I forget?" I replied. "I haven't seen her since we left school though." "I haven't seen her since that night," Muji replied, "you know." "Yeah," I said, and I did know. "She's my cousin and family is family," Muji said, "but I just couldn't face seeing her again. I hear about her though. My father and her father speak on the phone a couple of times a month." "How is she?" "She's been better," Muji told me. "Father says she's been fainting and having seizures. They've sent her to doctors and psychologists to see if they can figure out what's wrong, but they haven't been able to diagnose her. And without a diagnosis, they can't treat her. Did she ever, was she okay after that day in the attic?" "I never knew her to faint or have a seizure," I said. "She never even took a day off school." "Well, she's changed a lot over the last few years," Muji replied. "She started making predictions about car crashes, murders and things like that. She'll start babbling in the middle of a seizure and no one will be able to make sense of it until they look back on it afterwards. The power of hindsight." "Exactly," Muji said. "At least that's what it is for us. But it seems like Daphne has the gift of foresight. She knew about the Russian plane that crashed last year, according to her father at least." "And you trust what he says?" I asked. "What I mean is, do you think he's exaggerating?" I'm not sure," Muji admitted. "He told my father that when she makes her predictions, her voice gets deeper, but perhaps that's just the seizures." The hairdressers had finished with her, but no one else was waiting, and it seemed as though the staff were just as absorbed in our conversation as we were. She carried on talking as my own hairdresser took care of my split ends. "Daphne was always curious about psychics and ghosts and stuff," Muji continued. "She believed in the healing power of crystals and all that junk. Do you remember that gem she used to wear around her neck?" "Garnet." "What?" "It was garnet," I said, "her birthstone. She thought it would bring her good luck." "I don't think it worked," Muji replied. "From what I've been told, over the last couple of years, Daphne has been becoming more and more interested in the spirit world. She's been using the Ouija board again, only this time she's talking to the dead by herself. Her parents hate it, but what can they do?" "They could take the board away." "They did," Muji said. "They locked up the attic too. Daphne didn't go to university and she's still living with her folks, but she's got a car now and she's a grown woman. They can't exactly lock her up in her bedroom." "It can't be that bad," I said. "I'm not sure about that," Muji replied. She leaned in a little closer and lowered her voice, although I'm not sure what she was hoping to accomplish. The entire barber shop was listening to our conversation. "I know you've always been skeptical, Zaynep, but hear me out. I think she's been possessed." I'm not sure what response she was expecting, but I doubt it was the one she got. I sneezed. "Perhaps we should continue this conversation another time," Muji said. "Are you free tomorrow?" I told her that I was, and we agreed to meet up for a walk in Bacagoy Marquez, where we hoped we wouldn't be overheard. It was and is a stunning neighbourhood, and it had been one of my favourite places to spend time when I was a teenage dreamer with too many books and not enough time. That was the latest instalment of The Possession of Daphne Degamenti by myself, Dane Cobain, for this week's entry into the Rhylight Zone. You're listening to The Art Show on 106.6 FM Wickham Sound, and this is Andrew Cobain with Stars.
I want to know where we all go, how we find out what it's about, and will it be? Because it seems that they are gonna get to you. Am I alone? And do I know? Left behind? Will I find a better way? I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I love the way you make me feel when I'm behind the wheel. Do you think that you're some kind of star? I wish that I could be like you. I wish that I was sure. Do you think that this is some kind of lie? I'm not alone. Everyone knows we see through how you do, and I guess it's for the best that you don't care. Either way, fighting for air. Are you scared? Look around. You're surrounded by the people, and they look just like you. I love the way you make me feel when I'm behind the wheel. Do you think that you're some kind of star? I wish that I could be like you. I wish that I was sure. Do you think that this is some kind of lie? And I know you. Do you know me? I don't know what it is they see. I turn the knife, I turn it twice. Can you see the blood pouring from me? Now I know where they all go. They're on TV in front of me, and I don't care whoever's there. They all look the same to me. I love the way you make me feel when I'm behind the wheel. Do you think that you're some kind of star? I wish that I could be like you. I wish that I was sure. Do you think that this is some kind of lie?
Today I am feeling proactive, despite all the other things that are dragging us down. Told myself that today I'm not gonna drown. Yet today I'm feeling proactive. Yeah, today I'm gonna get lots of stuff done. I'm not just gonna sit around here on my bum. A productive mindset is gonna be deployed, but to do this is gonna get destroyed. Cause today I'm feeling proactive, despite all the other things that are dragging us down. Told myself that today I'm not gonna drown. Cause today I'm feeling proactive. Gonna update my website with some good news, that today is going great and I've lost my blues. Restring the guitar again for tonight. If I break them all then I suppose that's alright. Cause today I'm feeling proactive, despite all the the other things that are dragging us down. Tell myself that today I'm not gonna drown, cause today I'm feeling proactive. I'm gonna play this guitar for hours on end, cause new chords and words and lines are rushing to my head. My creative stream of consciousness has been enlarged. It's making me feel pretty good so far, cause today I am feeling proactive. Yeah, despite all the negative doubts and stress, today I'm feeling pretty good. And despite the knowledge this is all gonna turn to a mess, today I am feeling proactive. I know the black cloud has got to come back, cause my mindset is never too good to crack. Some worrying things start to work up a bit. Before I know it, it'll be far too... No, stop it. Today, we're feeling proactive. Yeah, despite all the other things dragging us down, tell myself that today I'm not gonna drown, cause today I'm feeling, yeah, today I'm feeling, yeah, today I am feeling proactive.
That was Proactive by Dan Pride, and before that we had Stars by Andrew Cobain. You're listening to The Archer on 106.6 FM Wickham Sound. I'm your host Dane Cobain, and this is normally the part of the show where we would be joined by our weekly guest, but instead we are having a Twangling Jack Ford album review special, so we're going to go straight over to Twangling Jack Ford over in the Oak Shed for some album reviews.
The best of Chaz and Dave. I was once walking through Walthamstow Market with a female friend when Ain't No Pleasing You came blasting out of one of the shops. I took my companion in close hold and we waltzed amongst the stalls. It was only then that I realised how much I loved that song. Chaz and Dave were not an act people like me would have liked at the time. They became successful with 2 songs they wrote and performed for TV adverts. So Gertrude and Rabbit, however witty and well performed, were as credible as I'd Like to Buy the World a Coke, or You Can't Fit Quicker Than a Quick Fit Fitter. They celebrated the London language of our fathers. My granddad was from Essex. He wore collarless shirts and braces and used phrases like Gertrude and cow son. Chaz and Dave never had the credibility of Ian Dury, but they did have lines like, you can keep your Costa Brava and all of that palaver. And their ultimate line, which had to be, if you don't think I mean what I'm saying, I'm only bluffing. Well, you got another thing coming, I'm telling you that for nothing. It is funny because people did say things like that. Chaz and Dave grew with credibility when it became known that they were experienced session musicians. A track they played on was famously sampled by Eminem. The image they chose, however, was not that of the experienced professional studio musician, but it was a look they would have grown up with. They were not East Enders, but they were from areas close to the North Circular. I saw Chaz and Dave with their regular drummer Mickey Burt at Wickham Town Hall, and when they played Ain't No Pleasing You, people danced in the aisles. It is said Chaz and Dave were one of the great rock and roll trios. Mostly they sang to 12-bar piano boogie with their distinctive 2-part harmony. Songs about needing braces to keep up their trousers because they're getting a beer belly and having to keep the noise down because the old man's trying to get some kip. Kitchen sink mini-dramas from a black and white olden days. In an East End with cockneys and costermongers doing the Lambeth Walk. Oi. They sing about London girls who always had £1 to buy a round. And they end with a big string-laden love song about wishing they could write a love song. As time went on, Chaz and Dave started to sound more like Status Quo, and vice versa, ending their careers with a big party. Still mustn't grumble. Best of Chaz and Dave. The Crazy World of Arthur Brown. During the psychedelic years of the late 60s, I was more interested in model railways and being a member of the 6th East Coast Scout Troop than what was going on in the hit parade. But there were always songs that became part of the national consciousness, and not all were by the Beatles. In 67 we had Whiter Shade of Pale, but in 68 things got darker, wilder and stranger, with Fire by the Crazy World of Arthur Brown. His Top of the Pops appearance with a flaming headdress quickly became legend. He sang with a voice that could equally have been at home in soul or opera. He could go from baritone to banshee shriek. He wrote dark lyrics about being the god of hellfire, and his theatricality, costume and makeup would influence Alice Cooper and the Goths. The other star of the Crazy World of Arthur Brown was the keyboard player Vincent Crane. This album has little backing other than bass drums and Hammond organ, yet it sounds full, and this is all down to Vincent Crane. Crane was a master of that 60s organ that seamlessly adds the flat 3, 5 and 7 of R&B to the descending bass of J.S. Bach and throws in a bit of jazz as well, like Ray Manzarek of The Doors. Only unlike Ray Manzarek, Vincent Crane had a real dirty sounding Hammond organ, as opposed to Ray Manzarek's chirpy Vox Continental. There is some kind of concept to the album, and there are repeating themes, but mostly it is all about the songs and the playing. It has dated a lot better than many albums from its time. There is plenty of 60s exuberance with shimmering strings and real brass playing stabs, riffs and fanfares. There is even some spooky mellotron, and there is no phasing or harpsichords or anything played backwards. All the influences are apparent on their version of Screaming Jay Hawkins' I Put a Spell on You. American music with British eccentricity. Crane went on to be more successful than Arthur Brown with his band Atomic Rooster, and he later joined Dexy's Midnight Runners. This album has nothing that tops Fire, but then very few do. The one recurring lyrical theme is the line, "The price of your entry is sin." The Crazy World of Arthur Brown. The best of Dire Straits and Mark Knopfler. Usually if there is any lead guitar on a song other than the solo, it is supporting the vocal with sympathetic melodies. On Sultans of Swing, the vocal supports the lead guitar. The vocal is almost a comment on the lead guitar. I remember seeing Dire Straits playing Sultans of Swing on TV when they were just a small band playing the London pubs. The camera was always on Mark Knopfler's fingers, plucking strings on a Fender Stratocaster. An entirely different sound. A star was born. Even now I can remember more of the lead guitar than the lyrics. They made more singles and they were catchy enough, but nothing special apart from the lead guitar. The songs were simple chord changes with unremarkable lyrics. It did not particularly rock. It was quite middle of the road, but Knopfler was a homegrown guitar hero. I used to do occasional deliveries in a works car. The car's usual driver had only one cassette, a C90 with 2 Dire Straits albums, one on each side. It was permanently in the cassette player. The songs are a bit Springsteen-esque, especially the epic Telegraph Road. For London driving, I would have actually preferred the aggression of Springsteen or some punk. But since I bought this CD, it has stayed in my car. It is perfect home counties driving music. The lead guitar has a David Gilmour-esque melodic quality, which also suits the rolling hills and swooping red kites of my sweet home locality. When Dire Straits released Private Investigations as a single, it seemed like a brave choice. It is a moody, semi-spoken musical film noir with classical guitar and cinematic pianos. And it has Phil Collins' Dairy Milk Gorilla drums. Knopfler may be the only guitarist to have created interest just by changing from Fender to Gibson. It was reported in the music press. People were curious to hear a new distorted humbucker sound rather than the scratchy single coil pickup string plucking that was his trademark. What we got was money for nothing. We saw it at Live Aid, a song I have never liked, Sting or no Sting. We then got songs in a more rock and roll style like Twisting by the Pool and Walk of Life with a chirpy Chris Montez organ. And we had Brothers at Arms. Knopfler wrote a moving lyric with a sumptuous tune, but it still leaves me yearning for the brilliant solo. They made an album that was so high fidelity it was the must-have accessory to go with the newly introduced CD format. I bought the double version of this CD because I wanted the theme to the film Local Hero. Knopfler uses the John Williams Star Wars Rising Fifth to lift your spirits, and he adds a certain Scottishness to the melody to set the scene. A perfect film theme and rock instrumental. The best of Dire Straits and Mark Knopfler. Duke Ellington live at the Newport Jazz Festival in 1958. A double CD I got at the Beaconsfield Oxfam Book and Music Shop. If there is one musical giant of the 20th century that I feel I am woefully ignorant of, it is Duke Ellington. He was a jazz pianist and composer, initially of the popular dancehall and jukebox music of the day, but he went on to write serious concert hall music. Being an African-American jazz musician, the serious musical establishment was slow to acknowledge his greatness, but his reputation has definitely grown over time. One of my favourite tracks on the Steely Dan album, Pretzel Logic, is a fairly faithful version of Ellington's East St. Louis Toodaloo. It has always been one of my favourite Steely Dan tracks. Also, there is Sir Duke, Stevie Wonder's tribute. I always thought that if Wonder's incredible instrumental passages were inspired by Duke Ellington, then that would be another good reason for further investigation. Having watched the TV series Treme and numerous documentaries about jazz, I became quite interested in its early form, where brass and woodwind instruments would constantly improvise around a melody, like bees around blossom. All with that swing that it don't mean a thing if it ain't got. Like New Orleans mourners returning from a funeral, or the video of In the Neighbourhood by Tom Waits. I also became interested in bebop from those same jazz documentaries, with clips of Dizzy and Bird playing frantic composed parts, followed by long improvised solos. In between these two phases of jazz history is a time of more composed pieces, where the improvising occurs during a predetermined number of bars, maybe a verse, maybe a chorus, or just a simple vamp. This is how most rock bands approach improvisation. The style and era of jazz that I have most struggled to appreciate was the dance band era. Growing up in the 60s, it was common to hear old folks going on about the great swing dance music of the 40s. We seemed constantly to live under the threat of a Glenn Miller revival. And we had a Glenn Miller biopic shown regularly on Sunday afternoon TV. I am quite familiar with the other dance band leaders like Benny Goodman, or even Count Basie, who would turn up on TV shows, and in Mel Brooks' Blazing Saddles. The only tune by Duke Ellington that I've ever been able to bring to mind is Take the A-Train, which is definitely somewhat cooler than Glenn Miller with his In the Mood and Chattanooga Choo Choo. I found a 3 CD set of Ellington in the Sue Ryder charity shop for a couple of quid. But though it has a satisfying original 1920s version of East St. Louis Toodaloo, along with Take the A-Train, Mood Indigo and others of his early compositions, everything sounds like scratchy 78s. In my search for an authentic Ellington listening experience, I bought an LP with 2 tracks by him, along with other contemporaries from the Shaw Trust charity shop in Beaconsfield. But though the vinyl is pristine, the sound is still that of scratchy 78s. So I bought this double CD of his performance at the 1958 Newport Jazz Festival. It gives a clear example of his music, a sort of précis of his development, with some swing dance music, some serious jazz compositions, some of his virtuoso piano playing, and some backing for some jazz singing. I have never been much of a fan of that kind of jazz singers fronting a big band thing. It seemed often to be an excuse to just dig out some old song with little true merit and jazz it up into something with only slightly more merit. In this case they do the song Won't You Come Home Bill Bailey. There is also an appearance by Mahalia Jackson singing gospel in front of a jazz audience for the first time. Ellington is very generous in introducing his guests and all the players, giving everyone a chance to shine. Duke Ellington, the Newport Jazz Festival 1958.
You're listening to the Archer on 106.6 FM Wickham Sound. I'm your host, Dane Cobain. You've been listening to some Twangling Jack Ford album reviews for our album review special, and this is George and Michelle with Division. That was Division by George and Michelle. You're listening to The Archer on 106.6 FM Wickham Sound. I'm your host, Dane Cobain. And it is time for us to head back over to the Ilkshed now to catch up with Twangling Jack Ford for this week's album review.
Edith Piaf, Je ne regrette rien, a compilation CD. I remember seeing a clip of Edith Piaf on TV. I remember it was in black and white. It may have been filmed in black and white, but it is more likely that my memory was from those 405 lines VHF monochrome years. She was singing with a passion I had never seen before, nothing like the Beatles or the American entertainers or even the dreaded kilted Scottish acts that sang on our TV at the time. It was very foreign and almost comical, but I was swept up in the way the piece slowed down and then built up in speed and intensity. It is a musical trick that has always appealed to me, whether in Zorba the Greek or Hava Nagila. The song was My Lord. It is a song I tried to learn on the piano in order to accompany someone I knew who was doing an Edith Piaf tribute. I wanted to be in on the act because it was going to the Edinburgh Festival, but My Lord proved to be way too hard. They went to the Edinburgh Festival without me. I did feel a bit cheated when I saw it performed locally with a pianist who had massively simplified the piece. And that is how I have an Edith Piaf compilation album. Piaf was a master of the torch song, possibly because she had had something of a tragic life, and I would recommend watching the film La Vie en Rose. She is probably most famous for the song La Vie en Rose, which has been covered by all kinds of artists, either with the original French lyrics written by Piaf herself, or an English translation. I probably first became aware of it when it was covered by Grace Jones. Her other big hit is the song Je ne regrette rien, a stirring anthem of a song with a shuffling marching beat, an uplifting song of defiance and optimism, possibly best known to followers of British politics as being a quote by Norman Lamont, the Chancellor of the Exchequer famous for Black Wednesday. Je ne regrette rien, Edith Piaf. Elgar, the Enigma Variations. I found this on an LP that I got at the charity shop in Cozy Corner. This is quite old and it has it's conducted by Toscanini. The Enigma Variations are variations on a theme written by Elgar as a counterpoint to a well-known melody of the day. Elgar never told anyone which tune inspired his theme, and that is the enigma. There are 14 variations, each inspired by one of his friends, including one of a dog that nearly drowned. The famous one is Variation 9, more commonly known as Nimrod. Nimrod is the most English of melodies. It has been used when something inspirational is required, but it has also been used when it was necessary to make fun of something purporting to be inspirational. And that is so English. I follow a YouTube channel that is mostly about prog rock, but it has taken on itself the task of defining the English aesthetic, in the belief that it is the thing that gives our art the ability to punch above its weight. The English aesthetic covers our humour, rather daft like Python and the Goons, self-deprecating, our mustn't grumble stoicism, not making a fuss and not jumping the queue, the 1966 Cup final and don't mention the war and don't tell him Pike, and Four Candles. It is fish and chips and seaside rock. It is real ale cricket. It is the hope that kills you. Rudyard Kipling and extremely good cakes and Chaz and Dave. And it is also making fun of those things. But if I had to name but one thing, I would just say the Detectorists. Once I became aware of the concept of the English aesthetic, a lot of things made sense to me, not least the power of the music of Edward Elgar to make my semi-rural home county's life even more English. I think a lot of it is seeing helicopter or drone footage of white cliffs and rolling hills, with a soundtrack of the big rising melodies, Vaughan Williams' Lark Ascending, Gustav Holst's Jupiter, and above all, Elgar's Nimrod. The Enigma Variations. Edward Elgar. Heart. The Essential Heart. Heart are a band I have hardly ever thought about over the years, yet YouTube has been bombarding me with Heart content since I started doing these recommendations. So once again I am dancing to the algorithm. I bought the Double Essential Heart CD because Amazon, obviously in cahoots with YouTube, recommended it as a Black Friday deal. It was only £7, which is cheap enough to take a punt. I remember the band Heart, and most notably the Wilson sisters, as being a pleasant enough soft rock band, back when soft rock was the least of my temptations. They were on TV and radio with songs from their debut album Dreamboat Annie. Anne and Nancy Wilson looked like pretty girls next door, destined for secretarial work and suburban family life. They in no way looked like rock chicks. Heart looked like an electric folk rock band. This album starts with Nancy Wilson demonstrating her prowess on the acoustic guitar, with some solo playing which leads into the relentless energetic strum pattern of one of their most famous songs, Crazy for You. We then get two more songs from their debut album, Mystic Man, which is a pleasant enough soft rock song, and the title track, Dreamboat Annie, which is something of an epic, with instrumental sections. The melody goes beyond folk and rock. It is delicate and haunting. It is almost Rodgers and Hammerstein. The first CD has many fine moments, but there are times when they almost succumb to the fashionable sounds of the day. There is some slightly funky chomping guitar that is more Dave Gilmour than Nile Rodgers, and the guitars do get a bit chorusy. But there is a great version of Aaron Neville's Tell It Like It Is, an acoustic epic called Dog and Butterfly, and it finishes with some catchy power pop. Heart were two women succeeding in the male-dominated world of rock music, but by the end of the 70s they found themselves being left behind. They had to adapt to the harsh realities of the 80s. 80s stylists turned them into monstrous totems of 80s excess, with massive hair, crazy clothes in that 80s vision of a space age look, heavy chunks of jewellery and caked on makeup. They epitomised what I hated about the 80s, with bombastic productions, ludicrous and massive budget videos for MTV. They went from being quite unique to being slaves of the 80s formula, from being women making their mark in a male industry to being coerced into being sexy for the male gaze. Anne Wilson was even instructed to lose weight. We get the big snare, massed backing vocals, stabbing synths in clouds of digital reverb, clipped or muted distorted rhythm guitars, and formulaic soaring guitar solos, all topped off with vocal performances that went rapidly from a whisper to a scream and stayed there. The song alone is so strong that it stands out, even with ice pick piano. So they went from making the kind of music that made me welcome punk, to making the kind of music that made me so utterly despair of rock music I turned to opera and show tunes. After the 80s songs they lose the chiming, tinkling synths and kitchen sink productions and finish the album sounding like a proper guitar band. There are some great live tracks. They do a storming version of Rock and Roll by Led Zeppelin, and Anne Wilson shows her vocal genius on a version of Unchained Melody. She can be immensely powerful without screeching. The Essential Heart. The Hank Wangford Band, Rodeo Radio. There are people who cannot understand that you can make fun of something you love. I myself have been criticised for making fun of High Wycombe, but I love High Wycombe. Hank Wangford's lyrics may make fun of the three chords and the truth ethos, but the music is a love letter to the white man's blues. It exists at the interface between parody and pastiche. I knew all about Hank Wangford before I saw him. I knew he was by day a renowned gynaecologist and by night a country singer. I knew there was a lot of parody involved, but parody in country music has always been like shooting fish in a barrel. One night the Hank Wangford Band appeared in a pub that was only a short walk from my house. A pub that had not had serious bands since the 1960s. I had no excuse not to go. At the time, if you went into certain pubs in the Harrow area, you stood a good chance of encountering Irish country bands, and I thought that was how live country music sounded. A bit naff. What I saw surprised me. Both the music and the comedy were way better than I had expected. The music sounded very authentic. The band had a great country rock rhythm, comparable to the other pub rock bands of the era. They had authentic lead guitar and fiddle parts. They explored the different styles of country music, including the country swing style, and that had interested me since seeing it performed by the pub rock pioneers Chilly Willy and the Red Hot Peppers on a couple of sweaty jump driving nights at the nearby Tithe Farm House in South Harrow. In between the songs, Wangford told unlikely stories in a very fake southern drawl, recounting the adventures of his bandmates who had names like Manly and Sissy Footwear and Cetus. I particularly remember the way he urged the audience to buy merchandise from the stall at the back with the plea, "If you patronise us, we will continue to patronise you." They had songs that had become legends in their own right, like "I'm Not Married But the Wife Is" and "Cowboys Stay On Longer." There is a polka and yodeling, but it was the 80s, so obviously there is a track on this album with semi-rapped vocals, a choppy flanged guitar and big reverb drums. But it does also have the legendary "Jogging with Jesus." Jogging with Jesus down life's long highway. Let Satan go skating his sin-spinning way. Hank Wangford, Rodeo Radio. Kraftwerk, Autobahn. I remember someone playing the Autobahn album on the sixth form common room record player. I remember the minimalist sleeve, a flyover over a motorway against a blue background. I remember the simple lyric "Fahren, fahren, fahren auf der Autobahn," sung to both the main melody and the secondary melody and rough choral sections. I was old enough to feel nostalgia as I had farmed on an autobahn on a family holiday. And I took schoolboy delight in explaining that the exit on the autobahn was called an Ausfahrt. Autobahn by Kraftwerk was groundbreaking, but it was not that surprising as it was a time of groundbreaking music. We had heard that kind of electronic sound on Bubba O'Reilly by The Who and the BBC Radiophonic Workshop's Doctor Who theme. We had also heard Mike Oldfield develop simple repetitive ideas into long pieces. What was surprising was how popular Kraftwerk became. An edited version of Autobahn became a worldwide hit single. It was the first of a number of simple melodic electronic pop songs by Kraftwerk to be hit singles. It inspired the likes of the Human League and Depeche Mode. Autobahn takes up a whole side of the album, but side-long epics were becoming quite common at that time. Just about any band claiming in any way to be progressive had at least one side-long epic. It is mostly synthesizer and drum machine, but it does not sound as mechanical as you would expect. You can hear the nuances of human performance. At times they do sound like a conventional band, only playing unconventional instruments. The themes are very simple and melodic, diatonic motifs that could be short extracts from folk or European classical melodies. It is strictly European, no hint of jazz or blues. It is mostly the main theme with variations, though there is a spacey section with a lot of heavily panned whooshing noises, like you would find in the middle of a Pink Floyd epic, or in the middle of Led Zeppelin's Whole Lot of Love. Autobahn, Kraftwerk.
Big thank you to Twangling Jack Ford for this week's album reviews. You're listening to The Archer on 106.6 FM Wickham Sound. I'm your host Dane Cobain, and this is Jazz DeLorean with Rain on a Sunday.
Got my head down on the tracks, eyelids full of rain. When the sun keeps shining for someone else, I fight this hurricane. Don't keep telling me to smile, I won't waste a smile again. Do you have the facts to make a lie, or the courage to remain? There's nothing like rain on a Sunday. To get you in a Monday sort of mood. Alone and in the dark, you got me on my knees. Take me to a star way out in space. One-way ticket, please. There's nothing like rain on a Sunday. To get you in a Monday sort of mood. No, there's nothing like rain on a Sunday. Get you in a Monday sort of mood.
was Steady State by MLN Ensemble, and before that we had Rain on a Sunday by Jazz DeLorean. You're listening to The Archer on 106.6 FM Wickham Sound. I'm your host, Dane Cobain. This is normally the point at which we would catch up with Twangling Jack Ford in the Oak Shed for a weekly album review, but it has been a Twangling Jack Ford album review special. So instead we're going to skip straight onto the good stuff. So as always, please do find us on Facebook. We are, if you search for The Archer on Wickham Sound, you should be able to find us. We are repeat on Wickham Sound on Monday nights. We're on the Wickham Sound Listen Again, iTunes, Spotify, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Please do leave us a short review on your podcast platform of choice. It all helps. And if you want to get in touch with me here at the studio, you can drop me a line on dane.cobain@wickhamsound.org.uk. That's DANE.COBAIN at wickhamsound.org.uk. I'm particularly keen to hear from poets, performers, musicians, people with MP3s that like to share, people with local arts news. Don't hesitate to get in touch. So I'm going to leave you with one last tune. This is Squid Face Girl with Breaking Ground. I'll catch you next week.
You could be facing struggles every day. You strike but you're feeling nothing goes your way. You put it all on the line. You put it all on the line, and the sun will shine on you. Don't wait around as your life goes up and down.